Hey everyone, today I'm going to go through game number 83 in the TCEC Season 17 Superfinal, and this is probably the most crazy Stockfish game I've ever seen. So in this game, Stockfish was playing with the white pieces, Leela Chess 0 was playing with black, and the opening book went as follows. So it was a Sicilian with e4, c5, knight to f3, e6, d4, takes, queen b6, and then the knight dropped back to b3, a6 was played, knight c3 and then d6, bishop to f4, knight to f6, queen d2, bishop to e7, castle's queenside, castle's kingside, and then f3. And this was the end of the book move, and already white's threatening to maybe take on d6 here with the bishop, and white will maybe be able to reinforce this with the move e5. So Leela's first move is to protect d6 with the move rook to d8, which makes total sense. And Stockfish goes in for the attack already with the move g4. Now Leela wants to try and prepare for an attack as well, so she has to move a queen out of the way. She plays queen c7, prepares b5. But now Stockfish just goes in for the kill straight away. There's g5, hitting the knight on f6. And there's two options for black here. They could play knight to e8 or knight to h5. If knight to h5, white can play bishop to g3, drop their bishop back. And after black plays a move like, let's say, b5, white can easily defend with a3. And if black develops with bishop to b7, white can still build up their attack with bishop to e2. And after g6, play f4. The bishop is suddenly unleashed on this knight, and if the knight drops back, then just play rook h f1. And white's attack can continue by playing the move f5 and try and open up black's position this way. However, in the game, after g5, Leela played knight to e8 and dropped the knight backwards, and Stockfish just carried on with their attack, reinforced g5 with h4, and Leela got on with her attack with b5. Now I really like Stockfish's next move. They just calmly played bishop to e3, and I think the point is, if black plays a move like b4, the knight could potentially jump into a4 and this b6 square suddenly becomes weak, and bishop to e3 also allows white now to advance this f-pawn up the board and get on with the attack. So Leela continued with knight to d7, and now this is an amazing move by Stockfish. Now I'll go as far as to say this is probably a genius move, and I'd be very happy if I saw this over the board. Stockfish played g6 here, so this just looks like it straight up loses a pawn. First up, let's just see what happens if black took with the f-pawn. So if f takes g6, white has the amazing move knight to d5, attacking the queen and the bishop. If the queen moves, the bishop gets taken with check, so black's forced to take. And then after queen takes d5 with check, the king moves to h8, white has queen takes rook, and white's just won the exchange. Even after bishop to b7, the queen can get out with queen a7. After rook c8 to attack c2, white should just play rook h2, and now all of a sudden white has just won the exchange and has a much better position with the king significantly weakened for black. So in the game, obviously f takes g6 is weaker than h takes, so Leela took with the h-pawn. But now here comes the idea for Stockfish, just opening up lines against black's king. They play h5. So there's no way that Leela's going to take that pawn, but let's just see what happens if she did. If g takes h5, then white can play rook takes, and all of a sudden the h-file is wide open. If black tries to defend with a move like bishop to f6, that looks quite nice. White can continue with queen h2, threatening rook h8 mate, so g6 can be played. And then white can continue with rook h7. And if black continues developing with bishop to b7, white should just now play moves like bishop to d3, getting their other rook into the game. And if knight to f8 to defend, white can continue with rook h6, bishop g7, and play rook h1 ideas, and basically forcing the king to escape, because rook h8 ideas are still on the table. So f6 to give the king a safety square. But even so, rook h8, king f7, and rook g1 is a very nice position for white, and this is how white should encroach on black's position. But in the game, Leela played b4, trying to counter-attack against white. So Stockfish drops their knight back to e2, and Leela plays knight to e5, threatening the f3 pawn, so white defends with knight to d4, defending the pawn, and black continues to counter-attack and defend their b4 pawn with a5. But now Stockfish just takes on g6, and black's forced to take with the knight, otherwise the pawn structure is just an absolute shambles. But after knight takes g6, Stockfish comes in with queen h2, threatening queen h7 and queen h8 checkmate ideas. So bishop f6 is played, gives the king a safety square to f8 to e7. And Stockfish remains super solid here with bishop to d3 developing the bishop and connecting the two rooks on the back rank. I hope it makes sense for Leela to counter-attack even more. She played a4 now, hitting the knight on b3. But now here's where things get absolutely crazy. Now it's perfectly possible for white to continue here with just knight to b5, attacking the queen. And once the queen moves, you can move the knight on b3 to d4. But even so, black may continue with b3, and here this variation is just absolutely mental because white can play e5 here, attacks the bishop on f6. If d takes e5 here, then white has queen h7 check, king f8 and knight takes b3, with bishop c5 coming in, which is devastating for black's position. So after e5, if black also plays b takes a2, there's this amazing variation with e takes the bishop. Black can get a queen with check, the king comes to d2, black takes on d1 because it's attacked, the king recaptures. Let's say knight takes f6, white has bishop to g5, threatening to take the knight and play queen h7 check because the knight's the only defender of h7. After e5, there's bishop takes f6, pawn takes, queen h7, king f8, and now just bishop takes g6. If the pawn takes this, then it leads to mate after queen h8, let's say king e7, and just rook to h7 is checkmate. So after bishop takes g6, black can play e takes the knight, e takes d4. But even so, after knight takes d4, there's moves like queen h8 coming, followed by rook to e1. For instance, after f takes g6 again, there's queen h8, king f7 and rook h7 mate. So one of the few moves to prolong black's position is queen b7 here. But even so, there's a nice move by white now, just knight to c6. If the queen takes the knight, then queen takes f7 is checkmate. But this knight does a great job of blocking in the king, stopping it from coming to e7. So if king e8 to try and escape, there's queen h8 check, king d7, and just queen takes the rook, king takes the knight, followed by bishop to e4, check, and after king c5, there's rook h5, continuing the mating threats. And at any point, white could just play also bishop takes queen, which is absolutely winning for white. So that was very complicated. That was what happened if white could play knight to b5. However, Stockfish decided just to go straight in for this variation already by playing e5, hitting the bishop on f6 and ignoring the threat of a takes b3. So again, after e5, if d takes e5 here, it's similar to the previous variation. There's queen h7 check, king f8, and now knight to b5, attacking the queen. If the queen moves to c6, there's bishop c5 check, leading to devastating consequences for black. For instance, if let's say bishop to e7 here, white can play queen h8, knight takes, rook takes is checkmate. But after e5, Leela decided to go all in here and played a takes b3, and now Stockfish also goes all in, e takes f6. If pawn takes a2 here, white has queen h7 check, king f8, queen h8 check, and takes is checkmate. So black's got to be a bit careful here. They played knight takes f6 though instead. White took on b3, and black develops with bishop to b7. But now here's where all hell breaks loose. Stockfish plays bishop h6. Point being, if pawn takes h6, there's queen takes h6, bishop takes f3, white can play bishop takes g6, and if pawn takes, there's queen h8, king f7, rook h7, takes, king f6, and white picks up the queen on c7. A very long variation, but very nice. But instead, Leela took on f3, bishop takes f3, and now black just took on g7. Threatening to take the knight on f6 and follow in with queen h8 and rook h8 checkmate ideas. Leela jumped their knight into h5, attacks the bishop on g7, and protected by the bishop on f3. So this bishop does a great job for black at the moment in time. Stockfish continued with bishop to f6. If knight takes f6, then white can play bishop takes g6, again threatening mate on h8, and if pawn takes, There's Queen H8 again, King F7, followed by, again, Rook H7, takes, and white will pick up the queen on C7 again. So black's structure is a bit of a mess here. To defend the queen, Leela played Queen A7, also threatens queen takes A2, and Stockfish now retreated their bishop back to G5. Black's bishop on F3 does a great job at the moment of protecting this H5 knight, and if this bishop ever moves with, say, bishop takes H1, then white can just play rook takes H1 and has mating ideas here, with queen attacking knight on H5 and also bishop to G6 coming in as well. So it makes sense for black to keep their bishop on the F3 square. So Leela continued with rook to C8, but now it gets attacked. Rook to F1 attacking the bishop, forcing it to move. It moves to G4, still protecting the knight on H5, but now rook to G1 is played, attacking the bishop again. It goes back to F3, but now queen H3, attacking the bishop again, and now it's forced to either defend itself or move again. Leela opts to defend it with queen to B7. Again, this bishop does a vital job of protecting the knight on H5, but now Stockfish plays knight to D4, attacks this bishop again. If bishop takes H1, white has the very nice queen takes H5, and this is just crushing for white, because bishop takes G6 is coming, and also rook and the queen are also threatening to take the bishop. So in the game, Leela again counterattacks. She plays B3, threatening to take on A2 and get another queen. For this reason, Stockfish advances their A pawn, plays A3, and now again Leela just goes all in. Rook takes A3, preparing to play moves like B takes C2 or B2. Stockfish though calls Leela's bluff. He takes the rook, B takes A3, pawn takes C2 was played, and now just queen takes F3 was played by Stockfish. If the queen swaps off here, knight takes, rook C3, white just wins with rook takes H5, rook takes D3, and bishop to F6, threatening mate on H8. So Leela has to do something very radical here. She plays queen to B1 with check. The best thing to do if you're a human player, if your opponent's winning, is to try and make things really complicated. And this is what Leela does here. But it's very difficult to do against an engine because they pretty much calculate you out of existence. King D2 was played, queen B2, threatening C1 check, discovered check. Knight takes C2 was played, queen C3, and the king dropped back to D1. And it looks as though white's position looks very safe now. Queen B3 was played by Leela, and now Stockfish just took on H5, and it seems like black's position is just collapsing. Leela takes on C2, and Stockfish plays rook H8 check. A very nice finish to the game, because if king takes H8, there's a very long mating pattern here with queen F6 check, king G8, queen to D8 with check, king H7, and then bishop takes G6, check, pawn takes, and then there's a very nice triangulation here with queen E7, king G8, queen E8, king G7, and then bishop to H6. Point being, the king can't take this because then queen H8 is mate. So king F6, bishop G7. Black can't take that bishop because then queen takes G6, or rook takes G6 is coming. So king F5, queen takes G6, king F4, queen G4 check, king E3 is the only move, bishop H6, king D3, and then rook G3 is checkmate. All from this rook H8 move. So instead of king takes, black took with the knight. And now Stockfish comes in for the finish. There's bishop H7 check, a discovered attack against the queen on B3. The king takes, Stockfish takes on B3, the rook goes to G2 and basically just sacks everything. Rook takes G2, knight to G6, bishop comes to F6, after D5 there's a very nice finish here. Queen H3, king G8, and queen to H8 is checkmate because the knight on a G file is pinned by this rook. So this is possibly the nicest game I've ever seen from Stockfish. It was a great game, full of tactics and interesting attacking options. Hope you enjoyed my analysis of this video. If you did, please do drop a like, comment or subscribe, and I'll see you soon with another chess video.